Hi my loves. This video is going to be all about my stretched septum, the process of getting it done, healing, stretching, some things I learned along the way that might be helpful if you're thinking about stretching your septum. So if you're interested in hearing about any of that, keep watching. My septum is currently at 6mm. This is the jewelry I wear pretty much all the time, always. It's a clicker from Body Art Forms. It is, I believe, 4.5mm thick, and the inner diameter is 11mm, I believe. I'm also wearing, I don't know why I keep doing this, you can't see. I'm also wearing a silicone tunnel in it because, like I mentioned, my septum is stretched up to 6mm currently so that it doesn't shrink down to 4.5 because I like the look of this, but sometimes I like wearing my big jewelry. I do love this for like every day because it doesn't hit my lip or anything and it doesn't look weird, but it's still like thick and in your face. Sometimes really like wearing bigger pieces of jewelry, which I will get to later on in the video. This will also be my stretched septum jewelry collection. I do have some older clickers and finer, like thinner rings and horseshoes from years past, if you will. But I rarely wear those, so I don't count them. I'm only going to show you the jewelry that I wear. Getting to the size that I'm at currently did take a couple of years. I got my septum pierced for the first time when I was 14 in the absolute dodgiest shop in the entire city. I've talked about it a couple of times, but they did it way too deep. It was hanging on by a thread, quite literally. And I had it, though, surprisingly, for I think 2 or 3 years, partially because, like, you know, I was 14, 15, 16 and just like clinging onto that one single facial piercing that I had with all my life and all my strength. And also because it was like the golden age of the septum. It was like the early to mid 2010s. It was the time of the mustache and the septum mustache jewelry. It was crazy and I do not miss it for a second. That's a lie. I got it pierced at 1.2mm and then unknowingly stretched it up pretty quickly because I got a pincher that was 1.6mm. Because they'd done it so far down, I really only liked the look of it with super small jewelry, and it also had to be like an open, like a circular barbell horseshoe situation. I hated how it looked with rings or clickers or anything, and it also looked shit. Like, I didn't just hate it, it looked like shit. It also looked like shit with bigger diameter circular barbells or bigger balls, which there was a time when I wore like a bigger diameter with bigger balls, but like looking back, horrible. Anyway, I had that for a couple of years. Then I took it out because I was finally like fed up with it looking like shit, and I also wanted to start stretching it, so I got it redone, I believe, when I was like 16, about to turn 17. I'm not 100% sure. My internet archives were not very helpful for that because I don't think I posted about it even on Tumblr, which is quite shocking because I posted every little crumb of a thought I had on there. But you know, I was like 16, 17-ish when I got it redone. Getting it done initially, the first time hurt pretty bad, obviously, because they went like through the cartilage, not through the sweet spot. I went a bit pale. They gave me a lollipop. Wasn't that fun overall. The healing on the first one was super easy. The only thing was that they gave me like a massive ring and I kept hitting it on everything, and that was kind of annoying, but only for the first week or two, and then it was just fine and fucking dandy. The second one, getting the piercing didn't hurt as bad. It just was kind of, if you've ever gonna be like the weirdest comparison. It was kind of like if you combine ripping out one of your nose hairs and like scratching yourself on the inside of your nose because it like like with your fingernail or something, if that makes sense. That's kind of what it felt like. It wasn't that bad. It was over pretty quickly. I cried 1 or 2 brave tears just because it was like the tip of my nose, and that happens. It's nerve endings and shit. The healing again was okay. The only thing that I remember hurting so fucking bad was like in the mornings, or if I hadn't cleaned it in like a few hours, and there was like dried blood crusties on the jewelry, and I moved it, and like one of the crusties either ripped off my skin or like went into the piercing hole. Those were horrible. I can't compare those to anything, but like if you know, you know. And I feel your pain. I started stretching it pretty soon after. I think like 3 months or so after I got it done. That time they pierced it at 1.6 millimeters, so I was already getting ahead quicker than the last time, and it's also clearly in somewhat the right spot. I don't think it's entirely in the right spot. It should be a bit like further towards the tip, but it's fine. We're here, we're living. It's chill. When I started stretching, I pretty much only used pinches to stretch, which isn't like best practice, but I had learned a little bit from my ear stretching journey. So I was going way slower, and also because it hurt really bad. It's just a whole different realm of like stretching and everything that compared to your lobes, which was the only other thing I had stretched at that point. I went in 0.5 millimeter increments every couple of months. So about like 6 to 8 months, I believe, after I started stretching, I was at 3.2 millimeters, which is where I stayed for a really long time. I'm talking years, like 4 years. And I did try in those 4 years a couple times to stretch up to 4 millimeters. My plan was always to get to 5, but when I was at 3.2, my goal quickly changed and I wanted to go up to 10, which is massive, but like, well, that's neither here nor there. I tried a couple times in those 4-ish years to make the jump from 3.2 to 4 millimeters, which is like 0.8 millimeters. That's almost a 4 millimeter jump, which is gnarly for your nose, especially for your septum, or at least it was for me. It just like never worked. I didn't want to force it because I was a little bit smarter, but it hurt so fucking bad. So I just kind of left it, and I was like, fine, this is just going to be it. I'm going to be at 3 millimeters for the rest of my fucking life. And I was okay with it, actually. And then one night at the piercing studio, I was talking about how I really wanted to stretch up my septum, but I was scared and I couldn't get to 4 millimeters. So one of my colleagues was like, no, I'll stretch it for you. We can do it. I don't feel the pain. I'll just fucking push. And I was like, sick. So we collaborated on the 4 millimeter stretch, and it, like, looking back, it really wasn't that fucking bad. There was a lot of lube involved. Disclaimer before one of the TikTok pieces gets to me. Don't do that. Bad. So then I was at 4 millimeters for, I want to say like another year, because 4 millimeters is when I started being able to fit silicone tunnels into my septum. So I could wear my clickers and everything, because that was one of the bigger things that I started missing over those couple of years where I was at 3 millimeters. And then in like mid to late 2020, I keep saying that was like my biggest body mort year, because I started stretching everything and I got my tongue split and all those things. I just decided I hadn't had enough pain the whole year, so I stretched up to 5 millimeters, I think. I used the jewelry that had come in my libret stretching kit at that point because it was in 0.5 millimeter increments. After I went up to 5, I thought I could put in a silicone tunnel and this clicker again, because it's just like a really nice look on me, I think. I really love this piece of jewelry. However, since it's 4.5 millimeters, the 5 millimeter, if I put in a 5 millimeter silicone tunnel into my 5 millimeter stretched septum, the outer diameter is going to be 5 millimeters and the inner diameter is going to be a bit smaller, like around 4-ish. Not quite. 4.5. I think you can tell where I'm going with this. I only then sized up to 6mm so that I could wear a silicone tunnel again and fit this back in. That happened, I think I want to say like over the course of the next year. So by the end of 2021, I was at 6mm and could wear this with the silicone tunnel, then everything was good again in the universe. So yeah, here I am about 10 years after getting it redone and starting stretching at 6mm, and I don't plan on going bigger because first of all it hurts. Septum stretching is one of those things that just kind of always hurts quite a lot, at least for me, even with like waiting forever, and like it's just a difficult spot to stretch. I'm really scared of denting, and I also like, obviously with stretching, right, your nose is going to change after a while, and I don't want that to happen, to be honest, so I'm not going to go any bigger. Probably, don't quote me on that. Maybe I'll wake up in 2 weeks and decide today's the day and I'll shove in a 7mm pincher. No, I won't. I don't think I'm going to go smaller either. I like staying at this size. I love this piece of jewelry. My advice for stretching your septum is, as always, to go super, super slow, even slower than you would on pretty much any other piercing that you might stretch. You can get blowouts on your septum, which is not fucking fun. Like, just be safe. If you want to be at a bigger size super, super quickly and you're in a rush, just get a fake pincher. Get a fake circular barbell, those with the tiny bit in the middle. Don't rush it. I know it's septum stretching now is the same as ear stretching was when I was like 14, 15, 16. So I know I see all these kids, teenagers, on TikTok, on Blue Sky, on everywhere, stretching their septum so quick, like they're in a fucking race. And if maybe one of those teenagers comes across this video and has watched this far, I just want to tell you there is no fucking race. I know how it is, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is your health and the integrity of your nose. So please take it slow. Don't rush it. And again, if you feel the need to have a bigger piece of jewelry in your face right now this second, get a fake one. Deadstretching, I know that's a lot more difficult on his septum, just because of like cartilage and like all of those nose factors. Personally, I'm again not a professional, just a body mod enthusiast. I feel like I have to say this every time or someone is going to jump down my throat, but I feel like for septums, tapers are okay, provided you go in 0.5mm increments. They are the proper material, like titanium. You're gonna want like a really long taper. One of the things I get asked about most, not even just from people who don't have piercings, but especially from people whose only piercings are septums, is how do you deal with the smell? And as I've said before, I just had to stop filming for a second because there was a fucking bug in my room. Don't know where it came from. It's January. I live in Europe. It's cold. So it must have been in here for a while. I hate thinking about that. I really don't like bugs, especially the ones that go like when they fly. I hate them. And that one was one of those, and then I had a bit of a moral dilemma because I put it outside and it's cold and it's January and it's gonna die. But I cannot have this fucking bug in my room because I would probably kill myself. So listen, it's crazy. I genuinely have like heart palpitations right now because of this. I hate bugs so much. I'm sorry, like, ugh. I think I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So, one of the things that people like to ask me, and it's usually not even the non-pierced people, it's mostly the people whose only piercing is a septum piercing. And their favorite thing to ask is, what the fuck do you do about the smell? And as I've said before, and I will probably keep saying forever and ever until I die, is that if you clean your piercing and your jewelry regularly and thoroughly, it's not going to smell. So the septum smell happens when you don't clean your piercing and your jewelry. It's an accumulation of sebum and like skin cells and all that good stuff. And it just like collects inside your piercing hole and then sticks to the jewelry. And that's what causes the stink or the ear cheese or the nose cheese or whatever the fuck you want to call it, oils and skin cells. And the easiest way to deal with it and get rid of it is to clean your piercings properly. I do this every day when I shower. On my stretched piercings, I just take out the plug, wash everything with warm water and soap, dry it and put it back in. On my regular gauge or smaller piercings, I like most days I will use a saline spray. My favorite is the Neil Med one because it has like a really cool like spray nozzle and it feels like you're pressure washing your piercings. Usually every other week ish I will also take out the jewelry on those smaller ones and wash those as well. I will usually put them in a, what is that called? In an ultrasound cleaner and just let it bzz off all the nasty stuff. And that is how I keep everything smelling good and not being cheesy and gross and disgusting. One of the other things I get asked, this one's usually asked by people who don't have piercings, and it mostly happens when I have my bigger jewelry in. What's it like when you have a cold? It's actually a very much valid question because it does, especially with the silicone tunnels I've found, it does get kind of annoying when your nose is super runny or when you're sick, which by the way is all of winter because like condensation. If you know, if you have a septum, especially a large gauge septum, it's just always wet in winter. Like whether you have a runny nose or it's just condensation building up, it's just always going to be wet, like here-ish. But if you're sick or you have a runny nose because of allergies or whatever, and you have a silicone tunnel in your septum, I personally find them really fucking annoying. So when I get sick, I usually switch to my larger gauge circular barbels or pinches, which sounds counterintuitive or weird. But what I hate the most is, especially when I have this in as well, is there's just like little droplets getting caught on the inside of the silicone tunnel and then they get moved around by this ring and it's just like squelchy and wet and disgusting. So I usually wear a circular barbell when I'm sick. And I think now it's time for me to show you my jewelry. It's not a huge collection. It is literally 3 more pieces. Yeah, so like I said, this is a clicker. Since it is a larger gauge, I do need these pliers. They look very scary to open them, but they're like, they have a special name. I don't know the special name, but they basically work the other way as normal pliers because if you push, they open, right? Whereas with normal pliers, it's the other way. This is a 4.5 millimeter thick clicker from Body Art Forms. The inner diameter is like 10 or 11 millimeters, and I think it's quite cute. I love her. Next up is this cute metal pincher. It's pretty heavy, and I don't necessarily love the look of it, but sometimes I do really like it. I'm thinking about getting a custom-made smaller diameter pincher because I do like the look of those. I would prefer one made of metal, and most of the custom ones that at least I have found that you can get in smaller diameters are like glass or wood, and those aren't like my favorite materials. I like glass, but I don't like the look of glass because I'm not like a colorful fancy jewelry type of person, if you couldn't tell. And then last but not least, the classic circular barbell. It is super heavy. but I love wearing it. I don't know, it's just, there's just something about it. I can't even tell you what it is. It's super cute. It just makes me feel like those cool girls I would reblog on Tumblr back in the day. It's absolutely a vibe. And that's it for this video. As always, if you have any questions that I didn't mention in this video, please do leave them in the comments down below and I will be happy to chat with you. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to see more of me, maybe consider subscribing if you haven't already. I would love to have you, and I think that's it. I will see you in the next video. Bye!